this race on the national map. And throughout the last year, as I have communicated with the people of Eastern Washington, here's what I've heard from them, and here's what we have said. Number one, people want health care security, affordable health care for their families. Number two, they want an independent Congress, not a rubber stamp for the administration. And they want members of Congress that are not about party talking points or special interests, but about the students, families, businesses, veterans, and seniors of Eastern Washington. They want an economy that works for everyone, not just the people at the top. And they know that that means investing in infrastructure and in the most important thing we can invest in for a real return on investment, and that is education, our kids, our future. We need to help an entire generation that's being held back by the crushing burden of student debt. They deserve that, so they can start families and buy houses and start businesses. And we could have a Congress that could do that for them. People told me they don't just want talking points, but real improvement in the care for our veterans and a vigorous defense of Medicare and Social Security. And let me bring it back around to health care again, because we started talking about it from day one. In fact, I really made the decision to run when I saw that party on the White House lawn, a celebration for a bill that would have been very damaging to the families of Eastern Washington and very damaging to the Spokane economy. We need a Congress who gets health care right. And the more we talked about it, heck, by the end, the other side had imitated and changed their websites and talking points. So, America is not about the results of one election. And no election is about the results of one race or two candidates. So let's talk a little bit about what else is happening this evening. Right now, it looks like people in Spokane are voting for schools and libraries. That means our children and our families win. It looks like Senator Andy Billig and Representatives Tim Ormsby and Marcus Riccelli are going back to Olympia in the majority. And I'm still crossing my fingers that there will be other representatives from Eastern Washington to join them, and I know that they will be working for education, for health care, and for good jobs for Eastern Washington. And if you've been watching the screens, then you know America is getting new leadership in Congress. And from what I've heard from the 10 counties of Eastern Washington, Ferry, Stevens, Pend Oreille, Lincoln and Spokane, Whitman, Walla Walla, Columbia, Garfield, and Asotin, we need new leadership in Congress. As I heard from Jacob at North Central High School just a couple of days ago, He and a woman from Deer Park who've seen the cost of their insulin rise to an immoral level, and this Congress needs to take on the high cost of prescription drugs. And just a couple of days ago, I was door knocking in Hilliard, and I came upon Ludmilla, and she's been here for a while, but she still mostly speaks Russian. Her English was not very good. And so I never really was sure if she got her ballot or not. And as we handed her our literature that had been translated into Russian, she started to read it proudly out loud to us. And then she looked up, a big smile came across her face, and she said, "Medicare, yes." And as I heard from young people in Spokane and my friends in organized labor who've been with this campaign, guess what? We can do the math. And we know that when healthcare costs and rent is rising faster than wages, we are not better off. As I heard from a mother of a student at Freeman High School and another mother at Temple Beth Shalom last week, mourning Jewish Americans murdered in a place of worship, we need a Congress that will enact some common sense legislation to protect our children and reduce gun violence in our country. And as I've heard from so many people, especially at our universities, at WSU and Eastern and Gonzaga and Whitman and the community colleges, they want a Congress that respects science. Silence too. And that will stand up to an administration that's rolling back pollution protections and the Clean Power Plan. Hey, I just got to tell you what I heard. And as I heard from Lily and Kate and young women in Walla Walla and Pullman, they want women leaders who stand up for women's reproductive choice and women's rights. And as I heard from Graciela, a DACA student, we need a Congress that will restore a path forward for our dreamers, and a Congress who will reject the fear-mongering of the president and respect what immigrants add to our economic and cultural fabric. And as I heard from Dean and Michael and my sister Gina and her wife Kim, we deserve a Congress that will not go backward on civil liberties for our LGBT community. And speaking of my sister, take a look at this team behind me. I am so proud of them. I am so proud of you. And so many hundreds more all over Eastern Washington who volunteered, who donated, especially those who volunteered out of our field offices in Colville, Pullman, Walla Walla, Cheney, our fighting team in Asotin County. Palouse was awesome. So a big shout out to this team, particularly those who've been here from the very beginning. Campaign manager Tanya, Kate, Aaron, Jeremy, Keeley, you to know that this campaign knocked on over 110,000 doors. Thousands of phone calls. I think Greg made thousands all by himself. 75,000 postcards, the postcard writers. Well over 10,000 yard signs. Some of them had to be delivered 2 or 3 times. This team organized 135 house and backyard garden parties where I got to have those conversations with people all over Eastern Washington, and over 40 other public events throughout the district. The Veterans for Lisa marched in 13 parades. And as of a couple of weeks ago, we were number 7 in the country for the amount of our financial support that came from small donors, outraising in the last few weeks our opponent without any corporate PAC contributions. And special shout out, I could not have done this without my dear, dear friends and family. And number 1, Brian McClatchy, thank you so much. As I've said before, I announced for Congress in August, and he married me in October anyway. My final message to you this evening is for the young people. You know who you are: Yuval, Callista, Dharma, the many, many girls and young women that I have had selfies with. I know our country may seem awfully divided right now, but I want you to know that our armed services members have died and risked their lives for the freedoms we enjoy as Americans, and that courageous people throughout our history have marched and risked their lives and bravely shared their stories and stood up for themselves and their families so that women could vote, so that African Americans could vote, so that Native Americans were not forced into boarding schools. That's what this country really stands for. Those hard-fought constitutional freedoms and civil liberties, and the rallying cry of liberty and justice for all, aren't rural values or urban values. They are American values. And we uphold and defend American values when we refuse to be falsely divided, and we reject disrespectful discourse, when we reject the demonization of our political opponents, and when we stand up for the right of a free press and free assembly. And when we realize that the hopes and aspirations of our community can be brought about by voting and participating. So thank you to all of you tonight who are doing that. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks, everybody. So much. You did such
Good evening, guys. Absolutely, it is a party here now as those results keep coming in. I have confirmed with Kathy McMorris-Rodgers through her campaign manager that she has just received a phone call from her opponent, Lisa Brown, conceding this race, giving it to the Congresswoman once again. As you can imagine, the folks here ecstatic. They were waiting all evening long for any sort of numbers coming in. Right around 8:15 is when we started getting them. People waiting, anticipating, waiting impatiently for those numbers, waiting and hoping, and it was exactly what they were hoping for as Kathy McMorris-Rodgers comes out once again. At this point, as you can see, folks here up on stage, you can see Kevin Parker now speaking. There were women that were just invited on stage, who were part of the campaign, that were invited up on stage to speak. Right now, we are waiting for the Congresswoman to come down. She was watching upstairs in her room, watching those results. Again, she did get a phone call, I have confirmed, from Lisa Brown conceding this race. Again, we are now just waiting for her to take the stage, guys.
A lot happening there, and for that we turn to our very own Adam Mayer. Adam?
Well, hey guys, I'm here at the Riverside Hotel. This is for Brad Little's watch party for the governor's race, and it's a very packed place and a little bit more crowded than it was in Paulette Jordan's watch party, but we're still waiting on Brad Little to come down from his suite. We're told that he could be down here within the next few minutes, and as the polls, as the results start to come in across the state, we're still waiting to see what the latest numbers are. Last check, Brad Little was up, so we're still trying to see where this election is going to fall, and as soon as he takes the stage, we'll be sure to take that.
Well, we apologize for those audio problems. I can tell you that one of the cable outlets, cable companies, called that race between Paulette Jordan and Brad Little almost over an hour ago in favor of the Lieutenant Governor Brad Little. But we're still looking at those final numbers, and we'll update those as soon as we can.
Yeah, many ballots still yet to be counted. For that, we go to the county office, and Kevin Kim's there right now where everything's taking place. But apparently they've stopped counting for the night, Kevin.
Steph, Dan, that's right. Look, I was here when it was election day, and now it's election night, but it feels like the day because it's just picking up again. I want you to see all these ballots coming in right now. We're getting reports of tens of thousands of ballots that haven't been counted yet. And like you said, Steph, they're not going to count these tonight. They're just collecting them and sorting them out to continue the efforts again tomorrow. We're going to have updated numbers for you when it comes to how many uncounted ballots are across Eastern Washington. Check back with us in a few, but for now, Kevin Kim, KHQ Local News.
Yeah, that'll be...
The latest numbers we got that they have some 72,000 still left to count.
Right, and new numbers coming in tomorrow morning at around 6 a.m. So definitely watch the Wake Up Show because you'll be seeing a lot of new numbers coming in.
All right, Claire Graham, you're following some of those races.
Yeah, guys, a lot of them are going on locally, and I want to let's jump right in. We've got several in Washington and then a couple in Idaho that we're following as well. Let's pull up the first screen there. So, of course, we've got the numbers in from Kathy McMorris-Rodgers and her challenger, Lisa Brown. McMorris-Rodgers is winning this one at this point with 55% of the race. Lisa Brown, of course, has conceded. Next up is the race for Idaho governor. Again, those are still preliminary numbers, but at this point, Paulette Jordan is currently in the lead with 57% of the vote. Up next, we have U.S. Senator for Washington State, Maria Cantwell, has a strong lead on her Senate seat right now. She has 59% of the vote over her challenger, Susan Hutchison. Next up, we have the Prop 1 for Spokane Public Schools, which was to improve and to renovate and redo several local schools in the Spokane area for the northeast, northwest, and south part of town. That one was passing. The City of Spokane Prop 1, which would redo the city's library system, that bond is also passing tonight with 63% of the vote. Up next, in Idaho, Prop 1 aims to bring back more instant horse racing terminals, which would let you bet on past horse races without knowing what you're betting on. This has been an up and down law that we've seen in the past throughout the state of Idaho. This one tonight is failing and has 53% of voters saying no. So again, that Prop 1 in Idaho is failing tonight. Prop 2 in Idaho is passing, however. This one would expand Medicaid in Idaho to cover anyone under the age of 65 with a household income of up to 133% of the federal poverty level. In theory, this expansion aims to help about 62,000 people who fall into a gap of not qualifying for Medicaid or being able to reasonably afford health insurance. So again, that Medicaid expansion in Idaho is passing tonight with over 70% of the vote. But again, these are all very preliminary numbers. Again, we saw just a moment ago, Dan, you were telling us that there are more than 70,000 ballots just in Spokane County that still have yet to be counted. We'll see some updated numbers tomorrow, guys.
All right, back to the 5th Congressional District race.
Yeah, Peter Maxwell has been covering the Lisa Brown camp. Of course, we understand she just conceded, but still a lot is taking place over there. And for that, we do turn to Peter.
Dan and Steph, right behind me, Lisa Brown is going around and hugging all of her supporters and giving hugs to those who helped her get this far in her campaign. She just conceded about 20 minutes ago in about a 20-minute long speech talking about some of the things that she tried to work for during her race against Republican Kathy McMorris Rodgers. I'm going to step out of the shot right here. You can still see some supporters are still here, but they are starting to file out. Lisa is still up on stage giving hugs and talking to her supporters and to her constituents who helped her along this entire race. I mean, it has been neck and neck the entire way, but those final numbers did come in, and when she did mention that she did concede, a big gasp filled the room. Her supporters shocked that she did call the Congresswoman to concede and congratulate her on her win. But right now, supporters of Lisa Brown's are starting to file out here, and she is up on stage saying thank you to those, and those are saying thank you to her for running against Kathy McMorris Rodgers. We're going to send it back to you guys in studio.
She put up a good fight, that's for sure.
As you might expect, the mood a little bit different at the Kathy McMorris Rodgers campaign.
Yeah, let's head back to Patrick Erickson to find out when exactly Kathy plans to take the stage. Patrick?
Well, it could be any moment now, guys. I can't tell you. It's the exact opposite of the Lisa Brown party tonight. Not a person has left the room, all hanging, waiting, and wanting to hear from Kathy after tonight's big win. It's been a long, contentious, grueling race here during this election, one of the closest of her entire career. But as all the others in Congress, she has now come out on top once again, getting a concession call from Lisa Brown a short time ago. We are continuing to wait as she takes the stage. It should be any moment now, guys.
Yeah, we'll go back there any moment as soon as we expect her to be on stage within the next few minutes. But right now, we're going to take you back to NBC's coverage.
All right, until then, we'll see you back here just momentarily to get Kathy McMorris Rodgers' response.
On behalf of all of us, is that at this time of division, the country's